Hey everybody, it's Josie. Welcome back to Cedar Creek Homestead. I hope y'all are having a wonderful day. It has been really nice and pretty here today. Not hot. Last couple of days it's been kind of stuffy in the afternoons, and my house sits in the west, and I've told you this lots of times. And so in the afternoons, this side gets really hot. I'm working on something in my life. And what I have been trying to do is not turn my air conditioning on. Howie always tried to get us to get to May at least before we turned on the air. But most of the time, he would go ahead and break down and let us turn it on because because being in here in this west in the afternoon, it would just bake us. You could feel it on the door. You can feel it coming, radiating, seems like radiating through these walls. Now you can go sit on the other side and it's not as bad, but anybody that's lived in a mobile home knows that gets really toasty and stuffy in the house. And so, but I'm trying my best to acclimate myself this year to a little bit warmer temperature. In years past, we've kept it really nice coming from the outside into the house to where you're just like, oh, but I'm acclimating myself, or trying to acclimate myself, and at least get, I would like to get through May without turning the air conditioner on. I don't know. Honestly, I have to tell you that I don't know that I can make it that far. I have been turning my mini split on in my bedroom at night just because it's really hard to sleep with it that hot. My house yesterday, I think it was like 80. It was 86 or 7 in here yesterday, and it was pretty toasty. I went ahead and turned my air on in my room yesterday. But today I'm just a little bit chilled. Now it's not cold outside. It's breezy. And it's a beautiful spring day, and I've done some chores outside. I tried to tackle mowing my yard, but I could not get the lawnmower to start. And I went online, put myself in a Google school, YouTube school, and I do that for a lot of things that I don't know how to do. And I've only mowed the lawn with a riding lawnmower one time in my life. And Blade was here when I did it. He's, off working. And so I'm here and I'm thinking, okay, I've got to do this because, the cows are looking at my yard with love in their eyes. And I'm going to have to get my lawn mowed. Now, I will tell you that our pastor's grandson has offered to come and mow my yard when he gets time, and I will appreciate that. But I hate to have him do that because they are such busy people, and I hate to have to. I don't want to take advantage, is what I should say. So I try to go out there and mow my yard before I have to bale it, and and I couldn't get it to start. So I checked, of course, before I ever even tried to start it. I made sure there was gas and checked the oil. I knew how to do those things. But I'm kind of thinking it might be something with the battery. And I dug around in the shop and found a wrench and a pair of pliers to try to get the battery loose so that it could be cleaned up and charged if it needed to be. And I worked and couldn't get it done. So I just had to give up on that chore. But then I went and I cleaned the filters on the air conditioner, the mini split air conditioner in our long-term food storage room. Howie installed that to keep the air consistent, the temperature consistent in there, where it's not hot, not cold. It's just an average temperature. And I needed to clean those filters, so I got those out, climbed up a little ladder and got those out and cleaned them. And so I felt good about that. So out of the 2 projects, one is completed, and I feel good about that. But then I sat out for a little while and I love to listen to those purple martins and watch them, you know, up there that they're just buzzing with activity. And I started getting chilled. Well, lo and behold, I got my first sunburn today while I was out there working or attempting to work on the lawnmower. And so got all the outside projects done. I came in. I think I'm going to have to get me a cat or a little dog, something. I've got 2 dogs outside. One of them is Blade and Cheyenne's, and Foxy, mine and Howie's dog, he's acting like he's not feeling well, and he's getting older. But I have got something in this house, a mouse or something. I can't find it, but I can hear it chew in my kitchen. And I think it's under the floor. And I've got bar bait and stuff that I need to put under the house. Howie always did every year, and I need to get some and put it under there. But I thought I'd need to get me a little kitten in here in the house, and I just don't know if I want to do that. But I thought maybe I needed a little companion of some kind. So I'm debating all of that, but nonetheless, I'm glad you guys are here. I'm glad that you're here to spend a little bit of time with me. I know that some of you have so graciously made comments on the videos. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the likes. And that you saying that you would like, if you lived closer, stop by and have a cup of coffee. And I would agree with that. That would be a nice thing, wouldn't it? To be able to sit out on the porch with like-minded people and drink a cup of coffee or a glass of tea and just rock and tell stories. Now, that's where I kind of want to go with our heart to heart tonight. I love to tell stories, and I like to write. And of course, you know that I'm working on a cookbook, and I've been working and thinking about a devotional, and I got other ideas in my head, bouncing around in there, a children's book and different things. But I got to get the cookbook written first. And, but I was thinking about storytelling, and I've had people in my family through the years that have been fabulous storytellers. And my Howie, he was a good storyteller as well. He was very pleasant to listen to him preach. And he always, it never failed to amaze me how he could put things together in a sermon. And he would give you his scripture, and then you would think, what is he going to do with this? And he always was able to bring it together. The Lord blessed him, and he was able to put his thoughts together. And he would have stories, a lot of them humorous stories, and he was just really, really good at that. My grandpa was another one that was just an awesome storyteller. And I love to listen to the stories that all of those that have went before me tell. And Howie was that way too. He liked to listen to stories. And I was thinking about that. And I have always been an avid reader. From the time I was a little kid, I learned to read at a very early age and have always loved to read. And I would just read whatever I could get my hands on. Mostly, you know, there were some genres like, you know, scary stories and stuff like that. I didn't like that. But a lot of stuff that I would read, and I probably shared this with you before, and that I would always read before I went to sleep. Howie normally would work after hours on our business, and he would do paperwork, and he would set his schedules for the next few days and do a lot of that stuff. And while he was doing that, you know, and he loved to do that. He loved to, that was just something that he liked to do in the business and in the farm as well. And he liked to research and do things. And so while he was doing that, I was reading. And I always had a story that I was reading, and when he would come to bed, he would say, "Who am I this time?" And so we had this running thing that I had shared with him one time about the characters in the story. And I was usually reading Christian novels, Christian romance, and that clean, innocent little stories. And but I had told him one time that I always, even though they described the hero of the story, I always saw him. No matter how they described the person in the book, the hero, while I was reading it, I was picturing him. And I will tell you that since he went into the hospital over 4 years ago now, I had a little book on my nightstand, and I put it in the drawer, and I've not read since then. Those kind of stories. I have read news stories and the Bible, of course, and magazine articles and things like that, but I haven't read another story. And it took me a long time to even be able to watch stories on television, movies, and things like that. And for the longest time, I wouldn't watch any of the little, like the used to, you could watch Hallmark movies that were clean and things like that. And it took a long time for me to get back into it. But I am slowly beginning to enjoy the stories again, beginning to enjoy those things. And I don't want to be robbed of my joy. I want to express my joy, and I want to express a part of me, which is writing and telling stories and stuff. And I've got to thinking about this one idea about how it would have been. Now, I like the historical, I like the old stuff. And I have often thought of what it would have been like. And you try to come up with these little stories, and I've thought of different ways that we'd be on wagon trains, or different, or how he would come to our town, which he really did. This part he did. It's just, lots of years later in modern time. But I thought about what would it be like if I made it to the story where he came, to our town, and he was traveled on wagon or train, and he was a visiting minister. Anyway, you know how you do with all that sappy stuff with your, your love. And so, but I was thinking about how it would be, you hear about the wagon trains and the things that they packed on their trains. You know that old show, Wagon Train? I love that show. But it amazes me when they show the insides of their wagons. Have you ever noticed how big the inside of the wagon looks? They'll have full-size beds in there, and they'll have, all kind chairs and all kinds of stuff in there, and plenty of room, to tell the story, and to, if you were having to sit by somebody's bedside, it wasn't like you was all cramped up in there. You had plenty of room. And I was thinking about all the different scenarios, that they set up in this wagon train, about how people, one story might be where they were crossing through a particular area in a certain time of the year. And so there was drought and no water, and they was trying to figure out how to get not only water for themselves, but water for their livestock and water for the horses. And, and then other times it got cold and it started to snow, and they were worried about getting through the pass. And, and I was thinking, boy, what would I do if I went on a wagon train? Now, when I was a little kid, we went on a trail ride. And I don't even remember where we went, but it seemed like we were on it forever. And I know it wasn't. Because you know how children think about things and how children process things. So I know it really wasn't that long of a wagon, a trail ride. And there was lots and lots, it seems like, people on horseback and people in wagons. And I know for sure I was in a wagon. I don't know who I was in the wagon with. But my whole entire family, we ended up at this farm. I can see it in my mind, plain as day. I know it was there. That was the place where I had my very first popcorn ball. because all the women got together and popped a bunch of popcorn and made popcorn balls. We were at somebody's farm, and it seems like that they were doing like hog butchering or something like that. But it's been, I mean, goodness, it's probably been, 45, 48 years ago, probably, or more. I'm 54, so it could have been even almost 50 years ago. But but anyway, so I try to build on what I can remember with that wagon ride, and sometimes I can remember things, thoughts and smells and stuff. And so I was thinking about going on a long wagon train and what I would decide to pack. And you hear the stories about people, dumping stuff on the way because it was things that they, thought that they had to have. And so on the journey, they realized this wagon is too heavy. And so they would have to dump off furniture and pianos and different things that they had tried to take with them. No doubt the wagon master said, you don't need all that stuff. And they packed it all up and put it in there anyways. With the risk of leaving important supplies behind, so that they could take the things that they was too important to them to leave. And it's easy for us to judge on this side of things because we've seen the stories and we've heard stories and seen movies and all of this stuff. And it's easy for us to say, well, I do this and I do that, because hindsight's 20/20, right? We can, when you're on this side of things, it's easy to say, well, I do this and I do that. Well, we're not going to be on any wagon trains anytime soon, or at least I don't foresee myself being on any wagon train. But we do need to supply, right? We need to build up our supply. We need to build up our pantries. We need to build up all of the things because we don't know everything that's going to happen. We see all the stories. We hear all of the things that is coming out of the government. And, a lot of those things could instill a lot of fear in people if they don't prepare wisely. Now, those people that went on those wagon trains, they had to prepare. And they had to think, the wagons weren't really as big on the inside as what wagon train portrays them to be. So they had a certain amount of space. And you had to account for you and your spouse and all of your children, whoever was going on the wagon train with you. You had to have not only provisions for your family, their food and their clothing and their, and different types of clothing, coats for the wintertime, shoes for their feet. The husband had to think about his livestock, whether it was horses or mules or oxen. They had to think about all of the things that those particular animals would need. They had to take along stuff to repair all the equipment that the horses would need, or the oxen or whatever they were taking. They had to think about how they were going to feed their animals. Now, I know sometimes they would munch around on the grass and the stuff, but no doubt they went through places that there wasn't a lot to eat. And so you had to make preparations for feeding your animals. Mamas had to think about how I'm going to feed my family from now at the beginning stage of this trip till all the way to where we get to, and not only to where we get to, but for some time after that, because they're not established there unless they were going to family that was already out there. They would have to establish themselves. So their supply is going to have to outlast just arriving at the place. She had to think about medication, which we know was probably herbs and things that they knew how to take care of their families, breaking up congestion, doing all the things, having stuff that if a bone was broken or something, because not all the wagon trains had a doctor on it. They had to think about what they were going to cook and how they were going to cook it, and their pots and their pans and their coffee pot and just all of the things. They had to have money in case they ran out of supplies, and they had to stop and get supplies at the next fort or store or wherever it was that they were going to. And they had a lot to think about. They had a lot of preparations to make, blankets and bedding and all of those things. And we know that by history, we know that sometimes they slept in their wagons and sometimes they had to sleep under their wagons. Some of them had canvases where they could pitch a tent of sorts and different things like that. And I thought about all of that stuff, and I thought, you know what? Really and truly, their preparations is a lot like preparations that we need to make today. Now, we, of course, are in our homes, but all of those things that they had to be prepared about are still things that we had to prepare today. Now, because we're in our homes, we have, restroom facilities and ways to take baths and take care of our personal hygiene, and we can replenish our supplies a lot easier than they could. And, we're in one place so that we can grow gardens and we can do the things. And we have so much technology that makes it easier, dehydrators and dryers and all the different methods of putting food up, not to mention canners and steam canners and hot water bath canners and all the jars and all the things. Can you imagine if we tried to go on a wagon trip west or east or whatever direction you wanted to go, and you took off like what our ancestors took off with horse and wagon? Can you imagine paring down and saying we're going to leave this behind and this behind and this behind? Because we know the conveniences of things that they didn't have in those days. The canners and the steam canners, those haven't been around all that many years. Freeze dryers for sure. All of the things that we are used to now, we insist that are a part of our lives. How in the world would we make room in those wagons for all of those things? But I'm thankful that I'm settled. Aren't you? To go on a little trip, it would be fun, maybe. But I'm glad that I'm settled. I'm glad that I'm here, that I have a roof over my head, that I'm established, and that I have means of gathering knowledge and applying wisdom, even more so than what those folks did then. They were very, very industrious. A lot of them walked across the country. They, as they walked, they picked up kindling. The women and the children did kindling and sometimes buffalo chips and whatever they could find to build their fires in the evening time. Mamas always had to be thinking about, hey, we got this much time before we stop and we put our dinner on, our supper on, and I need to have this prepared. And a lot of times they would have fixed their dough so that they would have bread and all those Dutch ovens and things that they had to do over those wood-burning fires. And I have a feeling that without a whole lot of practice, that some of us would be putting up a bunch of burnt offerings until we learned how to cook over that open flame. But just like they prepared for their journey, we had to prepare for ours. We are on a journey. Now, we're not traveling by horse and wagon, but our life is our journey, and we had to prepare for it. Number one, we all know that the biggest preparation that we need to make is spiritually, making sure that we have the blood of Jesus applied. Beyond that, we need to think about, just like those people that were going to go on that, if you were going to leave your home today, if you were leaving the comfort of your home, your big comfy chair, and you were going on a journey, and you were going on this journey without all the benefits that we love and appreciate today, or we should appreciate it. If you were going to go on this journey, what would you take? What are the things that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you could not leave that behind? Now, I would say that furniture would probably get left behind, a lot of it. A lot of our modern day conveniences would be left behind. If we're traveling by horse and wagon, you know, all of the electronic stuff that we have, all of the conveniences that we have, you know, there wouldn't be any microwaves and electric coffee pots and slow cookers and all those things. Those things would be left behind. And you'd have to plan what you were packing. I think that it would be interesting to make a list of the things that you think that you would need to take on a journey. Might be interesting to compare your list against your spouse's list or your children's list and see what things that you have in common that you all believe would be something that you needed to take. And maybe each of you might have something on your list that everybody else would be like, that's crazy. You don't need that. Because we are creatures of comfort. We love comfort. There would probably be some of those things that would be left behind too. Not needed. So I am challenging myself to think about the future. What ifs? What if something came down? I mean, we're looking at this world and we're looking at the attitudes of this world and we're looking at how people are fighting one against another, not just here in the United States, but in other countries, they're fighting us as well. And anger is at flashing points and anything could happen. What would be the things that you would want to make sure? If your house is your wagon, let's just do that. Your house is your wagon. What are the things that you would say, our wagon, our household needs this? Now, we all think about food and we think about water and and water's the very most important. You can't live 3 days without, you have to have water. But what would be the other things that would be of importance to you? Would it be our high dollar perfumes and colognes, makeup? Now, I'm not speaking against those things, but I think that we would begin to make some priorities. If we said, okay, we can only put X amount of items on this list, what would they be? Water, food. Beyond that, you have to begin to think about your individual family members and do they have special needs? And beyond that, you need to think about hygiene and how important hygiene is. And it's not that we have to be all dolled up, but we do need to be clean. Depending on the time of year is, I already told you that I'm trying to acclimate myself to warmer temperatures in the summertime. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to give it a shot. I would do better with cooler temperatures than I would warmer temperatures, but I am challenging myself. But do you have plenty of blankets and that kind of stuff? Do you have means? Do you have a hand fan? If you don't have anything else, I got a ceiling fan going up there. But if you didn't have anything else, is there a way that you could keep cool? Could you make you a fan? Make sure those church fans? I used to see them in all the churches, and sometimes you go into a funeral and they have the little stick on the bottom of them. Our church has a bunch of those, and I've got 2 or 3 on the pew that I sit on, and those work. Believe it or not, you get those going, it can produce use a little bit of wrist power, and there's just ways to look at things, and different angles to look at things to make sure that you have supplied yourself with as much of the things that you can think about that would be helpful to your family in time of crisis. Nobody wants to run out and get things in a crisis situation, because normally if there's a crisis going on, you're going to run into those hoarders of toilet paper, and there's going to be issues, and you don't want to be out there in that mess. Now, let me give you a few little pointers. I can't tell you how to ride a lawnmower, and I can't tell you how to drive a tractor, but let me give you a few little pointers, and I've told you these things before. When you're preparing, and a lot of people have not, they've been so worried and so over the top worried that they caused themselves to come to a standstill, and they couldn't move forward, and they got overwhelmed, and they couldn't plan by just doing a few things each week. Let me tell you, because now you're probably thinking, oh, things are so high, and they are high. So I'm going to tell you a few things that you can do. Number one, from now, springtime, all the way through the fall, you can take advantage of yard sales, garage sales, whatever you want to call them. And you would be surprised at the kind of things that you can find for yourself, for your family. You just have to get yourself, if you have problems with yard sales and garage sales, you have to get over that stigma. Now, I know I have some friends that they do not like yard sales. They do not like garage sales. My sister, when she was a little girl, and my mom loved yard sales, my sister would get in the floor. She wouldn't get out of the car when we would pull up at some place. But yard sales, you can find all kinds of things. Let yourself think out of the box when you go to these yard sales and you see something that can be repurposed. Maybe you can use it for what it was meant for, but don't be ashamed if you get something and use it for a birthday, or you use it for a Christmas present. I know that sounds crazy, and there are people that say, well, that's cheap. That's this or that. But you know what? I guarantee it's something that you can take home and you can clean up, and you can, sometimes maybe paint something, sand it down and restain it, do different things like that. And you'll be surprised at the people that will be thankful and that they will love what you did for them. And maybe it's not even necessarily the gift that you gave, but it's the time that you put into it, the things that you did to enhance it. One of my favorite gifts I ever got was a rocking chair that was my great grandpa's rocking chair that had been had to be restored. And my mama worked, I don't know how long she worked, sanding it down and restoring it. And I was tickled to death to get it for Christmas. It wasn't anything over the top and spectacular, but that's what I had wanted, was a rocking chair, and she made it happen. So check yard sales, check the thrift stores. Now, I will tell you that not all thrift stores are created equal. There are some of them that you have to be careful, because you will pay almost retail price or brand new price for things that they're selling. So you have to kind of be, pay attention to what you're given for things. Then go to your stores and the big box stores, and they are changing seasons. They're shucking winter, and they're moving into spring and summer. And you'd be surprised at the shoes, at the hats and gloves, the winter clothes, the blankets. I would look at blankets for sure. I have gotten some really, really nice blankets for $3 and $4 on clearance, and they were beautiful, soft, warm, cozy blankets. You'll be surprised at the things that you can find just shopping between seasons. Not just winter into spring and summer, but spring and summer into fall and winter. And check all the different areas, as you're walking around and you're thinking about the things that you might possibly need. You know, you're looking at the, if you're looking at the fishing and you're looking at the camping, those things probably right now you're more than likely not to get those for as cheap a price. But they might put them on sale, trying to, you know, like a pre-sale. But you're always thinking about the season that's coming up. Make sure you're looking at the season that you left, especially if you have little children. If you can kind of estimate what size they're going to be this next fall and winter, what size of coat they might need, or what size of shoes or boots they might need. It's something that sounds silly, but we all know that prices are going up, and we know the things that are going on in the world, and the fighting back and forth, and the threats and all the things that are being made. Those things, should they go into effect, and it looks like some of them are, the prices are going to go up, and availability might not be what it is right now. That's not a fear thing. That's not anything to scare you. It's just to encourage you to think about your wagon trip. Think about what your wagon needs, what your wagon, your home might have need of in the near future. Think about that. Think outside the box when you're out and about, from yard sales to thrift stores to grocery stores to the big box stores. Don't be scared. Just keep preparing. And in groceries, the same thing. There are things that you know that your family likes. Then if some of those things are things that we don't market right here in the United States, then that's probably something that I would look at storing up on. I would probably suggest, if you're coffee drinkers or tea drinkers, if you need cocoa powder, if you need vanilla, there's things that are going to be coming from other areas that might be challenging in the future. Alrighty, guys. This is Josie. I love you guys. I really do. Keep looking well to the ways of your household. And until next time, we're gone.